If sometimes stock market movements are described as a roller coaster, then July 2020 definitely can be referred to as such. Hi, my name is Andreas Vogelsanger. I'm the CEO of the AFC Vietnam Fund. Right from the first trading days in July, we saw strong buying interest in the stock market, mainly from local investors. They pushed up the VNI, the main index in Vietnam, to almost plus 6%. Unfortunately, that trend didn't last, and on July 24th, that was the day when the first COVID-19 case was discovered after a period of 99 days of no new infection. The stock market turned into panic selling. VNI, the main index, closed down the month minus 3.2%, Hanoi around down 2%, and small and mid caps were down even 5%. Luckily, thanks to very good results, our AFC Vietnam Fund closed the month plus 0.8%. So Vietnam actually doesn't have that many infections. We have currently 652 COVID-19 infections, of which 270 are being treated. Unfortunately, 8 people died so far due to COVID-19. If you look at how many infections per 1 million of its population countries have, then Vietnam has only 7 infections per 1 million of its population. The world average is around 2,244. And if you look at the US, that number is almost at 14,000 infections per 1 million of its population. So we can argue this number is really not that huge in comparison to other countries. And we still think that Vietnam will manage to have positive GDP growth in 2020, and it should grow strongly again in 2021, should we bring, of course, COVID-19 eventually under control. And nobody knows that, I'm fully aware of that. So, but it's widely expected that 2021 will be much better than 2020. Let's really hope so, fingers crossed. So I would like to talk a little bit about the beer market in Vietnam, especially, is it as bitter as its taste? Vietnam has one of the strongest beer markets in the world, and players such as Heineken or Thai Beverages, they are very much interested in that market. So the largest player in Vietnam is Sabeco, with around 45% market share. So Sabeco was privatized in 2007 and in 2016 listed on the stock exchange in Ho Chi Minh. At the time at the price of 132,000 Vietnamese dong. In 2017, the government announced that they're going to sell 53.59% of Sabeco through an auction. Thai Beverage managed to get that stake. They set up a local company in order to avoid the foreign ownership limits, which are limited at 49% of a company at the time. And they gained the auction at the price of 320,000 Vietnamese dong. So the stock price obviously was rallying before that auction from around 180,000 to 332. And as I said, the successful bid was 320,000 dong. Shortly after that successful auction, where they gained the majority of Sabeco, the stock prices started falling. But Thai Beverages did a lot of restructuring of Sabeco and started to manage quite handsome profits in 2019. Unfortunately for Sabeco, in Q3 2019, the government introduced a new drink driving law, and that had an impact on beer consumption because the fines were pretty pretty hefty if you get caught, if you would have been drinking in Vietnam, and hence the stock market started coming down quite rapidly. And then obviously COVID-19 broke out, and in March 2020 the stock price was a staggering 70% lower than its peak. So for Thai Beverages, that means a valuation loss of its holding of around $3.2 billion US. Of course, they didn't sell. They still are holding that stake and still working on Sabeco to restructure it to make it more efficient. And the beer market in Vietnam is still a very encouraging market and eventually will recover, and hopefully the stock price too. But I just wanted to illustrate with that example how really stock prices can move quite significantly. So what else are we going to talk about? Manufacturing shift into Vietnam. It's actually continuing. There were numbers coming out about foreign direct investments. That number was almost at the same level as year to date as 2019. It stood at $10.1 billion US, which was $500 million lower than 2019 numbers. So that means this manufacturing shift is ongoing, and Vietnam is definitely well positioned in this, let's call it, quite a lot of tension between China and the US currently. A lot of this manufacturing shift is actually accelerating into Vietnam, and that's helping obviously to create jobs and helping the economy. If I look at export numbers, we had strong declines in April and in May. April declined around 14.4% in terms of exports and around 15.5% in May. However, June saw a strong recovery, and exports were down minus 1.9%, and in July it managed to even grow at plus 0.3%. So that led to a trade surplus of around $6.5 billion US. Also interesting to hear was Apple's announcement that they're gonna start producing their very famous and popular AirPods in Vietnam as of the third quarter in 2020. The PMI, the Vietnamese Purchasing Manager Index, also saw a strong recovery in June. It went from 42.7 to above 50, so it closed at 51.1, which is a positive reading. Also there, quite positive news. So governments around the world announced a lot of fiscal stimulus packages in order to fight the COVID-19 impact. And if I look at Japan, for example, which had a 42% of its GDP, they created a fiscal stimulus package of around 42%. That number in the US is around 14%. And if I look at ASEAN 5, the average is around 5.9% of fiscal stimulus packages. And Vietnam's number, let me just check, is around 4.6%, which is a number of $12.2 billion US. So the Vietnamese government, of course, that's a big number for them, and they really are quite serious of helping the COVID-19 impact. And even if we look at the fiscal deficit that creates, which is around $14 billion expected, or 5% of the 2020 estimate nominal GDP, this is only around 1.5% higher than its original target. So this is far off from concerning levels. So it looks actually that Vietnam will manage to keep that spending under control without destroying or hurting its fiscal balance sheet too much. So this was all for me. I will give you another update in August at the end of the month, or better said, always at the beginning of the next month. So we're gonna hear from me the latest beginning of September. I wish you all a very nice day. Thanks for listening to me, and goodbye.